Welcome, everyone, to today's podcast. Now, this episode is something that every person needs to hear, especially all the leaders. I'm joined by Rich Ellis, better known as the Energy Coach. With nearly 20 years of experience working with business owners, leaders, and corporate teams, Rich specializes in helping people take control of their energy, resilience, and well-being. We dive into practical, real-world strategies to boost performance, reduce burnout, and prepare for a thriving 2026. From frontline teams to executive leadership, Rich shares how small, sustainable shifts can make a massive difference in how we show up, lead, and live. If you've ever felt like you're running on empty, this episode is the reset you need. Now, Rich is coming from us from the beautiful country of New Zealand, just north of Auckland. So welcome, Rich. Lovely to have you on the podcast.
Thank you, Michelle, and great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Right. Look, I've got a number of questions because I always love to have conversations and really dig deep into about your journey and why you got into it, but also how you help others. So, you've spent almost 2 decades now helping individuals and teams unlock their energy and their true potential. Can you share your own journey from fitness coach to workplace well-being? How has that shaped the way you support leaders today?
Yeah, great question. That journey has given me a much broader perspective on how the body works. I think, often well-being programs can be about, resilience and things that you do day to day, but often, everything is connected to everything. It's often our brains are kind of separated from our bodies somehow, and you're working on this, but you're not thinking about that. And actually, it's all the same system or a group of systems all joined together. So, when there's something going on mentally and emotionally, then our bodies feel that too. And so I suppose the journey for me has been understanding how the body works and understanding that quite well, but then shifting into a broader market, working with corporates. And it's not all about the physical, but I think that physical background gives me a really good grounding to then build all of the other things on top of it. When we talk about sleep, when we talk about nutrition, when we talk about gut health, whatever it may be. And I suppose I kind of see people very holistically. I try to see people very holistically, not just, well, what are their challenges day to day, but who are they as people? What other things have they got on their plate? And what things could be affecting them that they can't not bring to work with them? Because they say leave your personal stuff at the door. That's just not right. Nobody can actually do that. And obviously you switch on your professionalism when you start working with customers and clients, but the things that you bring with you will be affecting you mentally and physically. And I suppose being aware of that as a leader in terms of how your team are having to handle their day, what is it that they're having to juggle on top of the work day, is something that really needs to be taken into consideration. And I think the smart leaders are very aware of that, and they build systems into their operations so that they can capture some of that information, be aware of what's going on, and then manage and lead in better ways so that the team are better understood and therefore more effective together.
And you're right. Everything is linked together, and you can't just leave it at the door because there's a lot that impacts you when you come into the workplace. But I know you talk a lot about, your energy is your greatest asset. Now, of course, business owners and leaders, particularly in the hospitality industry, it's long hours, it's constant pressure, and of course it's people management. No matter what time of year it is, it's new staff coming in, attracting and then retaining staff. What does that actually look like in practice when we talk about that energy is the biggest asset?
Yeah, I think when we turn up, energy is our biggest tool in terms of sort of switching on. You can drag yourself through a day and add a 2 out of 10, or you can turn up with lots of energy and be a 9 or a 10 out of 10 for the day. And I think that is a choice, but also there is potentially something else that may drag it down to a 2. And so, just getting the basics right, having a good night's sleep, making sure you're fueling yourself with good quality nutrition so that it's actually providing the energy that your body needs, hydrating so that you don't Cognitively, we need lots of water running through our system if it's a stagnant swamp rather than a fast running river, then that's what's going to happen inside our bodies. So, those are, it's all common sense stuff, but it's easy to forget those things when you're busy. It's
Yeah.
easy to neglect those things when you're busy. And I think the 10 out of 10 or the 9 out of 10 day from an energy point of view will go well. You'll get there every day if you are doing those basics right. And I think during a busy day, during a busy service, it's about making sure that you take those breaks when they're available, because they're not always going to be available when you think.
Yes.
You've got to respond to what's in front of you, right?
Mm.
And I took some lessons from reading some special forces books. The guys who are dug into a field and watching the enemy, and they don't know whether they're going to be there for 2 days or 2 weeks.
Mm.
So when they're on hypervigilant patrol, which is like a busy service in hospitality, you find those micro breaks to give your brain a bit of a moment. And, that might be breathing, that might be getting some light into your eyes, that might be getting outside into nature, giving yourself that extra glass of water. That just finds a moment in time that allows you to take that time for you so that you can come back and carry on.
Mm.
And I don't think those things are selfish. I think, you're setting yourself up to be a better version of yourself so
Yes.
that those that you interact with then get that best version of you. So, I think it's being a little bit selfish to be very unselfish.
Yeah, definitely. And
Mm.
what's that saying? Like the stewards on and hostesses on the plane say, you put the mask on yourself first and then
Yeah,
others. And it is so true.
so
We
true.
can't keep going on just that pent up energy, and particularly water
Mm.
is so important.
Mm.
And I suppose that brings us to that comment about burnout. For business owners and leaders, they just keep going and going and going. What are some of those early
Mm.
warning signs of that energy depletion, and how can leaders, intervene both for themselves and their teams before it hits crisis point? Because I think it's not always just about themselves. They can observe it, can't they,
No,
in their
no.
team?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think a really intuitive leader will be able to see those things.
Yeah.
The highly empathetic leader who gets people.
Mm.
And you can read. I mean, body language obviously is our biggest communicator. We know that, right? And the subconscious mind will start telling tales well before we say something or do
Mm.
something that indicates where we're at. So a good leader will see those things. The dropped shoulders, the lack of eye contact,
Mm.
lateness to work. Um, Maybe leaning on caffeine a little more, like, oh, that's a
Yeah.
third, is that your third coffee today? Normally you're a one coffee a person, so a day person. So, there are little things that will start to show themselves. And for me, having gone through a period where I was exhausted and in that burnt out state, that was one of the things that I did. I was really reliant on that daily coffee, and it was probably more than one. And it was insidious.
Mm.
It didn't really mean much at the time, but didn't realize till I looked back and went, actually, if I got past 10:30, I was doing really well because by
Yeah.
that stage I really needed that cup.
Mm.
And so these are all little signs that people may be struggling. That's a withdrawal as well, so less communication, sort of going within themselves. Is a
Mm.
sign that they're depleted. It's our body's way of conserving any energy that we've got left, and
Yes.
obviously that the impact that has on those around us then means that, well, they may have to pick up the slack.
Mm.
So yeah, there are lots of little telltale signs, but I think those smart leaders are the ones that have been around people long enough now that they can see the signs early on. But those are some of them for sure.
Yeah. And I think
Mm,
what's important, that you've made there, Rich, is they need to be observing their
mm,
team. Nobody
mm.
can see their team from, being up in the ivory tower, so to
No.
speak, which I know none of my clients are. But, there was a time where, the CEO or the owner of the business was either working on the business outside of the business, or, that senior leader was never approachable. But we know
Mm,
more and
mm.
more now that our generations, particularly Gen Z, are looking for that connection, but all generations
Yep.
are, they're wanting to be
Absolutely.
a part of something, and it's also showing their vulnerability too, isn't it, Rich? When a leader goes, you know what, I'm absolutely exhausted, I'm going to go out for a
Mm,
walk, and
mm.
making sure, as you were saying about those breaks before, that they
Yep.
actually take them. And,
Yep.
and I know I say to my teams, don't just sit
Mm.
at your desk. Like the duty managers will just sit there and go, oh yeah, but hey, Michelle, I've got the phone on me. I've got to be there to answer it. And I said, well, that's fine, but you can go outside and walk around the car park. You can go
Yeah,
and walk up and down to the
yeah,
function rooms or just something, just get you outside and have that fresh air because that burnout does creep
absolutely.
up on you. And it's quite easy, I think, to ignore it until it gets to
Mm,
a really bad point. You
mm.
you advocate for those small tweaks that
Yeah,
create that
yeah,
big
yeah.
impact, and I think that's what's important. A lot of people think, "Oh, it's just too much of an effort. I couldn't be doing." But
Mm.
those little things and how they add up. So, what are perhaps two or three daily habit changes that someone working in hospitality could start today to boost their energy, to focus, and
Mm,
have that
mm.
overall well-being?
Yeah. Well, I think the biggest one and the one that if anyone says what's your one piece of advice, I think is the morning light, getting the morning light into your eyes. So
Right.
that means getting outside. This could be your first coffee, or it could be while you're eating breakfast, or it could be a dog walk, whatever gets you outside. And that morning light does a couple of different things. So the first one that it does is it bookends your day. So it's sending the message to the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which is the center of all control in your body. So everything follows a circadian rhythm, but that's the master clock.
Mm,
And so it sets the time of the beginning of the day. So the clock starts ticking from that point onwards. So about 16 hours later, your brain knows it's probably about bedtime now for
yes.
most people, not necessarily everybody, depending on their roles, but at least there's those the signals are being sent. And the other thing that it does is that it helps wash away the melatonin. So melatonin is one of our sleep hormones.
Mm,
It helps us feel sleepy at the end of a day when the sun's gone down, and it helps us drop off. Now, if that's still swimming around our system when we wake up and we go into our day, now we could feel a little bit groggy and I feel a little bit, not
mm,
100% on the ball. It may
yes.
be that there's some melatonin still sitting in our system, so it helps to clear that out as well and starts the day from a fresh, clear point of view. So that would, and it doesn't take long, right? I'm not saying you need to be out there for an hour, literally 10 minutes,
Mm,
7 to 10 minutes because the lux, so the amount of blue light in the sky, is considerably higher than it is indoors, both in
right.
a car or in a building. So you can't do this through glass. There is no cheating. So you have to get out there, and even on an overcast day,
Mm,
there's enough lux out there that it's going to do the job, as opposed to being inside considerably.
yeah.
So that would be one of them because it's a great way of setting yourself up for a good night's sleep the next night, and your body's going to follow its signals that tell you when that may be.
Mm,
There are umpteen other ones, but I touched on sleep, and obviously getting yourself a good 7 to 9 hours is
mm,
where the science sits at the moment. If you
yes.
are consistently under that 7 mark, potentially your immune system may be struggling, potentially your energy levels won't be where they need to be,
Mm,
your cognitive function won't be as sharp. So, you know, we all know, Mother Nature didn't give us sleep for no good reason. Potentially a third of our lives are actually spent sleeping, and we're not robots. So,
yes.
give it the respect that it deserves because it will set you up for a good day, but also a healthy life.
Mm. I
Simple as
love that.
that.
Give it the respect it deserves, and it certainly does.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
there's
yeah,
stupid things, besides your
yeah,
bed,
yeah.
and I've just done the latest update. And I don't know whether it's got to do with that or not, but I like listening to Headspace before I go off to sleep.
Mm,
I just find,
mm,
just that breathing exercise is really good.
yeah.
But what I'm finding, whereas before, and once again, it may just be my phone, but it used to just go dark, but now the screen just lights up and it stays lit up. So I'm waking up throughout the night with it so
Oh,
bright. It's unbelievable. So
yeah,
I'm actually
yeah,
turning it upside down. And I think, as I said, I don't know whether it's just my phone, but it's something like that that is impacting because you can, it's obviously when you have those, you come out of those rhythm patterns, I can
yeah,
see it
yeah.
there. And then what's the next thing is you do, you pick it up and go, well, let's just check it out. And then you just down that
Mm,
slippery slope. Rich,
you're right.
slippery.
Yes, that's right. And the amount of blue light that comes out of our phones when it's
Yeah.
not on dark mode is
Mm,
considerable as well. And so that's sending the wrong signals if we're trying to sleep. So
yes.
what I would suggest is, do you use your phone as an alarm, Michelle?
Yes. Mm.
Right. Okay. Is there any way in which you could find yourself a more traditional alarm clock and put the phone in a different room?
Yeah. Yeah, it wouldn't be a problem.
So
Yes.
that would be my recommendation to clients, because even if the phone's off, our brains know that it's there. And
Yes.
because it's there, there'll be that slightly higher level of vigilance than there would be if it's not there. And I
Yeah.
know, so from a practical point of view, people might be on call. There may be really good reasons why the phone might need to be next to them. But if it is, our brains are just slightly more on alert. And that
Yes.
means that we're probably not going to get as good particularly from a deep sleep point of view,
Mm.
as restorative as it could be.
Yes. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the thing, we all have it beside our beds,
Mm,
and then it just, yeah, only has to have one trigger. And then when you do look at it, the thing starts pinging. You think, oh my goodness, I just wanted to look at the time, and everything starts interacting, and then
yeah.
you're off on a tangent. Mental fatigue in the hospitality sector, certainly continues to grow.
Mm,
Not only
mm,
with the demands of the workload, but also for the members, the guests, the customers that come through the door that are expecting immediacy.
mm,
And for many, unfortunately, they're not as tolerant as they once were
mm,
as
mm.
well. And as we find, particularly when people get hot and bothered, and it's no
Yeah,
excuse, but they think
yeah.
they've got every right to take it out on the wait person. What are some proven strategies you recommend for building mental resilience, especially in that frontline and leadership roles?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I notice more and more signage appearing in
Oh, yeah.
customer-facing businesses, banks,
Mm,
restaurants, and I think that people changed their behavior during COVID. People became
yes.
very intolerant of what was going on.
Mm,
They were forced to do things they probably didn't want to do. And I think some people's brains broke during that time. And I think some of them haven't repaired themselves since. And I think you'll get customers sitting there who are unreasonable and
mm,
treat people with complete disrespect. And I think that's appalling, to the point where
yes.
it's reasonable for someone to walk away and say, "Oh, I'm just going to ask my manager to come," or
Yeah.
find some way of having a backup system so that if you are treated with disrespect, you don't have to keep tolerating it.
Mm,
Um, I think the other thing to think about in that position is that, it's not personal. They're not having a go at you, the
mm,
person. They're having a go at you, the wait staff, as the person providing the service. And
mm,
unfortunately, you just happen to be the person on the day that receives that disrespect.
mm.
And so I would say that, that's probably a really good starting point, because they don't know you. They're just being
Yes.
disrespectful to the role, not the person. So
Mm,
separate yourself from the role in that situation and say, this too shall pass. This
yes.
person, this person doesn't mean what they're saying, even if they think they do. Who knows what sort of a day they've had? Their business might be going under. They may have been running late. They were stuck in traffic. Someone else is making unreasonable demands of them, and then that is the person who receives the disrespect. So, that little bit of separation, it's not personal, and this too shall pass.
Yes.
Uh, are some nice steps that helps people, just deflect it rather than absorb it,
Yes.
because there's nothing worse than sort of taking that stuff on board and really sort of walking away feeling bad about yourself.
Mm,
And that's not what should be happening. It should be Teflon. It should be, that's fine. You can throw slings and arrows, but words will never hurt me. So,
yes.
again, it depends on personality type. Different people are going to be affected in different ways. And I
Mm,
suppose the experienced people will go, well, I've been here before. I know how to handle these people. The
yes.
younger, less experienced are probably the ones who are going to suffer the most.
Mm,
But I think, as hard as those situations are, once you've been through one and you've handled it, you've now got evidence to show that you've been
yes.
here before.
Mm,
You didn't die. Everything was okay in the end. This
mm.
person will be leaving soon, and you can move on with the evening, sort of thing. So, yeah, we don't need those people, but unfortunately, they exist everywhere.
They do. They do. Yeah. As much as you like to call them a jerk, you can't.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, and I think the thing is, it's not allowing it to impact on the service you're going to provide for the
Mm,
next, customer,
mm,
and
mm.
also how it's going to impact the teams. You've coached teams of all sizes, Rich. And so what are some of the most, common patterns that you see in the workplace that are struggling with low energy and that high absenteeism? And how do you
Mm.
go about shifting that culture?
Yeah, good question. It's a slow shift. It does take
Yes.
time. I think the key starting point is taking stock of where we're at now. Like, what are your normal routines? Why are you in the position that you're in? And are you aware of that position? So being very much aware of how things are now,
Mm.
and then thinking, well, where do we want to be? You know, the
Yeah.
classic gap, right? Gap analysis,
Mm.
and going, okay, so if we want to be there, but we're here, how do we build that bridge? What steps do we need to take to get ourselves there? And I think one of the things that I like implementing in with the organizations I work with is a check-in system.
Hmm.
So it can be informal, it can be literally, one to one. How are you going? You know, talk about energy, talk about sleep, talk about, and it doesn't matter which ones you choose, but have a system. Or it
Mm.
could be more formal. So before any meetings, everybody sits down and talks about whatever the things are on the check-in list. And
Mm.
so it becomes embedded in the routines and the culture so that it's something that everybody focuses on a regular basis. But it
Yes.
has to be led by the leader. If the
Mm.
leader's not on board with it, it will fall over. And that's what I've
Absolutely.
found. Where
Yes.
it's flourished, it's because the leader believes strongly in it and can see the power that it has.
Mm.
And where it hasn't is because they haven't believed in it and they haven't really driven it. So, making it like almost a half an agenda point on a meeting agenda.
Yes.
So you don't need to spend much time on it, but acknowledge it.
Mm.
And then you don't have to follow up there and then. But if someone says, "Oh, look, I'm a 2 out of 10 today,"
Mm.
sorry to hear that, John. I'll catch you afterwards. So you don't need to spend any more time on it in the meeting, but
Mm.
see it as an opportunity for a conversation afterwards. Going, is everything okay? How
Yes.
are you
Yes.
doing?
Mm.
What's going on that could be contributing to this too, and
Mm.
hopefully they'll open up and you can have that conversation about, well, why don't you have a chat with Rich?
Mm. Yes.
He
Yeah.
can help you. But that's a way of sort of weaving it into the culture, and once you've done it a few times, everybody gets used to it, and then they
Mm.
start thinking ahead because they know it's coming. Pavlov's dog,
Yes.
and so they know what the check-in's going to be. They know that it's going to be a moment of discussion, and because the brain knows that those things are coming, it's a prediction machine after all. We
Mm.
start backtracking and going, well, if I was a 2 last week, I don't want to show up as a 2 again this week. So
Yes.
what do I need to do for myself to be a 4 or a 5 or a 7 or an 8? And that's the best bit where it starts to actually self-police and self-manage
Mm.
because then people are thinking about those things for themselves because they know that's part of the culture. So that's an example of how I've done it and how it works. Yeah.
Yeah, which is so important because you're right. The they can seek help, but they also have to help themselves. So therefore, they need to
Yeah.
establish, those little tools, those resources that I'm sure you do share. I know you talk about your program, coaching for coaches and workplace wellness programs are
Mm.
incredibly practical. How can hospitality businesses start embedding
Mm,
empathy
mm, mm.
and wellness practices into the workplace, Rich? To build that culture, to be a part of it without it feeling like just another initiative that
Yeah,
somebody
yeah.
got a great idea and we're paid the invoice and we're made to come along. Mm.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that last story, I guess, is a component of how that works.
Mm.
And as I said, those changes happen slowly. When you're wanting to change culture, it isn't an overnight job. It is like a year-long engagement. Typically, that's what I encourage organizations to commit to, because not only does it mean that there's enough time for behavior to change, it's also enough time to prove that there's a return on investment. Because the behavior's changed, we've changed some of the absenteeism and the sickness and the,
Yes.
the recruitment that we didn't need to do. So there's an ability to then demonstrate the return on investment as well. So it is chip away, chip away, chip away, and then behind that workshop there will be coaching. So that's where the coaching comes in. And coaching for coaches is a course for coaches that helps them be better at coaching. So they're
Right.
asking better questions. They're pausing for longer. All those little skills, those micro skills. And so by doing the follow-up coaching, it allows people to embed some of the changes. So let's
Yeah.
say we have a workshop around sleep. And I provide my top 10 tips at the end of the session. We then have some group coaching afterwards where they'll either jump on a Zoom or we'll sit around a table, and they'll have the opportunity to work on some things for themselves, like, oh, I'm going to try and get this routine thing going. So it's the same time each day.
Mm.
And then I'll say, okay, so what does that look like? Are you going to do that from tomorrow? Are you going to do that every day of the week? And I'll make a note of what they commit to because then I can hold them accountable. And so that's where my value is, not just in the education, but also in the accountability. As the
Mm.
months go by, each of those different workshops, each of those different modules, people are working away in their own time at those changes of behavior. And so
Yeah.
by the time you get to 12 months, you look back and go, wow, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this. And if you extrapolate that across the organization, you're never going to get 100% compliance from everybody. But if you can get sort of 50 to 75%, then you're winning because
Yes.
that's enough of it to have an impact across the organization.
Mm.
And so that's the process. Month by month, we chip away and slowly but surely people change their behavior. And one of the things I'm mindful of is that they just see it as another thing. Like you said,
Yeah.
it's just another thing. So when I make recommendations to them, I say, well, how are you doing certain things at the moment?
Yes.
And how can we just change that so it doesn't take any more time? You're
Mm.
just doing it in a different way. So
Yes.
eating healthier is an example, right? You're
Mm.
going to sit down, you're going to eat, you're going to take that time. Why not make it as healthy as it possibly can
Yeah.
be so that you're nourishing your body rather than just fueling your body?
Yes. Mm.
And so that's the approach that I take. And yeah, over time, that's where the change occurs.
Yeah. And I love that being over that 12 months because
Mm,
you can see the changes, but then they can also identify them and look back over that past 12 months.
yeah.
My final question, because I'm sure we could talk all day, is for leaders listening today who are tired, stretched, and unsure of, exactly where to begin. What's that first small action that they can take this week to reclaim their energy and move into 2026 with more clarity, resilience, and control? Rich?
Love it. That's great. I think it is good to say that what's that one thing, right? Because
Mm.
it's easy to go, oh, I'm going to go to the gym 3 times a week and I'm going to walk the dog and I'm going to da da da. And suddenly the list is 5 or 6 things long and it's a recipe for disaster because it's great, but it's probably going to fall over very, very quickly. So, yeah, as James Clear says in his book Atomic Habits, start small. And so what would the one thing like? I'm always going to go back to my morning light. That is my go-to one thing.
Mm.
But while we've been talking, I've slowly been chipping away at this pint glass of water,
Yes.
and I'm about halfway through it already. While we're talking, it hasn't taken me any more time to consume
Mm.
this water because we've been talking, and as soon as you talk, I pick the glass up.
Yes.
So, it's the small things. It's, well, how many glasses did you have yesterday? Oh, three. Well, could you try four tomorrow?
Yeah.
So we're not asking for the world. We're just asking for an improvement. And I
Yeah.
think if you see it in that light, then it seems like it's achievable. And
Mm.
then by the time you've got to 6, 7, 8 glasses, you can look back and go, "Oh, I was only drinking three."
Yeah.
So people will see those things as insignificant. They're not insignificant. They add up. They
Mm.
really do.
Yes.
So that's what I would say is pick the thing. So for me, I'll share mine. So I've been really remiss with mindfulness, and I've had this app on my phone for a long, long time. In fact, I collect apps so I can share them with other people and never use them. So I've made a point. So what I've done is I've shifted this app from a folder on the second screen
Mhm.
to sitting on its own on the first screen, and it's a gratitude app. So what you do is it's called Tact. You just type in something that you're grateful for. So I'm making a point of making a daily action of 3 things I'm grateful for. Well, I'm starting in 2025, but really this is for 2026. And
Yes.
all I have to do is type 3 things in at the end of the day, and I still haven't nailed it. I'm
Mm.
failing badly, and I can go back into the history and see which days I did and which days I didn't do.
Mm.
So I'm taking some of my own medicine and working on that for 2026. So 3 good things every day for 2026. And I think there's enough science out there to show that, when you're grateful for what you have, your well-being goes up, your positive feelings increase. So that's my one for 2026.
I love that, Rich. I think also, just stopping at the end of the day and writing those 3 things down and being great is also reflecting on what you've achieved today. We go
Mm.
from one thing to the next. And it's not just a quick dopamine rush. It's just, oh, well, this is the list. I've just got to go, just got to keep going, just got to keep going.
Yeah, yeah.
And, even now, a lot of people will start reflecting, over the next few weeks and go, oh gosh, I forgot that I had done that. I even know that myself. I think, oh yeah, that's right. I did do that until somebody asks you,
Mm,
or you look back and see a photograph, or you find that email and you go, oh yes, and we can just
yeah.
rush from one thing to another. I will certainly be putting all your contact details in the show notes, Rich, but can you just tell my listeners about how they can contact
Thank
you
you.
and how, yeah, you actually
Mm.
work with them? That'd be
Of
great.
course. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Typically, LinkedIn is the best starting point
Mhm.
from a business point of view. So Richard Ellis on LinkedIn, and I am on Facebook. I am on Instagram, but that's probably not where I promote
Yes.
the business side of things. So yeah, I think LinkedIn would probably be the smartest starting point, and then we can connect up and have a conversation on there and go from there.
That'd be wonderful. Well, as I said, I'll
Mm.
certainly put those in the show notes. Thank you so
Thank you.
much, Rich, for sharing your journey, but also some tips and strategies on how leaders and business owners of today can just take a moment and breathe and realign. And as you said,
Mm.
having that energy is the
Absolutely.
greatest asset, which is so important. Thank you so much.
Thank you.